This show is brought to you by HostBaby.com, web hosting for musicians.
It's episode 45 of Music Marketing Monday, and let me ask you, what are your goals for the year? What are your goals for the month? What do you plan to accomplish this week? Heck, what are you going to do today? That's right. It's all about goal setting, setting a vision, taking the action steps to make it happen. Oh boy, this is going to be a good one. Stay tuned.
Information, inspiration, motivation for the modern musicpreneur.
Time to start your week right.
Here it comes, Music Marketing Monday, with your host, Bob Baker,
Mr. Buzz Factor,
and Billy Gryzak.
The Music Marketing Mind.
Ready? Are you sure?
Set.
Here it comes. Swing, baby.
A goal is a dream with a deadline. That's a quote by Napoleon Hill from the author of Think and Grow Rich. Hey, speaking of authors, we have one over there in the corner, but in the meantime, let me tell you who I am. My name's Billy Gryzak. I am the Music Marketing Mind, and our house author is, of course,
Bob Baker, Mr. Buzz Factor. That's right. I am the official house author here.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what the heck I do here, but I'm just happy to be here, man. Let me tell you.
We need to get you into the author camp as well. I know we've talked about your forte is more speaking than writing, but one of these days, man, you need to get that, somehow get it down in a text format and get it out there for peeps.
Oh man, that's like words, writing. I don't know, man. Anyway, hey, welcome to Music Marketing Monday, and this is a special episode for us because this is kind of like a time machine episode, because even though you're hearing it today on, what is this, the 19th, I think? I'm not sure exactly.
January 19th, I think is when it's scheduled to go live.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're actually recording this in the distant past. So, yes, time travel is a reality. And today we're going to talk about something that's hopefully going to help propel you to travel through 2015 in a very positive way. What is that, Bob?
Well, yeah. Well, actually, no matter when you listen to this, I know there's a lot of focus on goal setting, and they use the term resolutions, which I'm sort of getting less and less enchanted with that concept of like year-long resolutions, and I'll explain more as we go on. But no matter when you listen to this, you can benefit from goal setting and kind of getting refocused on what you want out of your life and your music career and your marketing, and then how to get that. And so even if you're watching or downloading this or whatever in July of 2017, it's still
in the year 2525. Do you remember that song by Spreaker?
I do. Yeah. I do indeed. And I'm having flashbacks to the 70s right now. Some good, some bad. Yeah, so goal setting. So, as usual, we haven't really plotted this out or compared notes, but I know we both are ambitious people. We have both been prolific in our own right. And so you want me to kick things off here with some initial ideas?
What is goal setting, Bob?
Well, goal setting is having a dream with a deadline.
Oh, that's right. I did that already.
No, and I kind of paraphrased it there. It's basically, it's really deciding being, being proactive with how your life unfolds instead of just being along for the ride or being a victim of whatever happens and just going, it's like taking control of your life. And so the first step is really deciding, what do you want? Where are you headed? What's your vision? This is particularly about music and musicians. And so we'll focus on that, but it really can apply to all areas of your life, your health, your relationships, but let's keep it focused on our music career. But what do you want? Where do you want to end up? And the more specific and measurable that your goals can be, the easier it is to determine whether you have reached them. And so this is kind of age-old goal setting advice, the specific and measurable. So in other words, instead of saying, well, my goal for this month or this year is to sell X number, or to sell a whole bunch of CDs or to book a bunch of gigs, that's not very specific. It's not very measurable. How do you know when you've reached more status?
That's right. It's funny. There's speaking of authors, there's this author, one of my absolute favorite authors of all time, said, Fuzzy goals lead to fuzzy actions and fuzzy results, things that won't serve you well. Do you know what the name of that author was, Bob?
Well, that sounds really familiar. I think he's a brilliant guy. Ralph Waldo Emerson, something like that.
Yes, that's a quote from something you wrote once called "How to Set and Reach Your Music Goals."
Oh wow! Are you Googling while I'm speaking here?
No, I have this committed to memory, Bob, because I'm a genius.
You just recite Bob Baker quotes.
That's right. Remember, goals must be effective. To be effective, they must be specific, measurable, with a deadline. Yes, there you go.
Yeah, and that helps. But I will admit that my approach to goal setting and the resolutions and all that has evolved. And actually, in recent weeks, I've been having sort of new epiphanies about it. And maybe we can touch on a little bit as we go through this episode. But I'm more and more about linking up there's two different things. There's the vision, there's the thinking about it, there's the affirming, there's visualizing that where you're going to end up. But there's also the stuff you have to do in the real world. You can call it taking action. That's the typical way. You could also refer to it as how is your behavior going to change or be modified to help to enable you to get to these goals that you have set. And that's the missing piece for a lot of people. Some people will do a lot of visualization, but not a whole lot of action in the real world. And other people will get busy doing stuff, but it's not tied to a larger mission or vision of where they want to end up. And so they just kind of end up spinning their wheels. So I think it's the combination, the balance between those two, for me, is the most effective. Your thoughts, sir?
I totally agree with that, and also there's different types of goal setting. For instance, there's short-term and long-term, and then what I call life goals. And then one thing I also do is I do what I call a one-word. I used to call them one-word mission statements, but it's basically my theme for the year, which is kind of a goal of sorts, but it's mostly just a mantra, a statement, something I can think of that helps me remember to follow the goals that I've set for the year, or the long term. You know what I mean? So
a mantra. Do I have to wear a robe to be able to do this?
Oh.
So you have I've heard people do this. You have a theme for the year. Some people have a word for the year.
Yeah, exactly. In past years, when I first started, the first word that I used was minimize. Because I just had so much chaotic clutter, both figuratively and literally, in my life, and that was important, and then for this year is focus, because again I've been running off in a lot of different directions. So my 2015 word/mantra/one word business plan goal setting reminder is to be focused, stay focused, and try not to squirrel.
Yeah, the shiny object over there.
Exactly, because that's something I'm notorious for. You know what I mean? So and then I use goals differently than some people do. At least I think I do. Maybe we can discuss that as well. But go on, please.
Yeah, so you said a couple of things about staying focused, and that's what's one of the evolutions in my goal setting philosophy or whatever, is I'm getting more and more focused on the short term. So it's great to have a vision, and I have this vision of this grandiose idea where I want to end up. Like for me as an author, it's to impact more people. It's to be able to support my family in even more significant ways. And so that's the long term on the horizon. And while that that can happen quickly or whatever. My experience throughout my life is nothing really took a huge leap in a short amount. There was no pivotal point where I got some kind of media exposure or something happened where suddenly my career or success exploded. It's always been a gradual organic growth, and so that's not as sexy for some people because they want the quick fix. But so for me, it's all about focusing on the more the micro aspect of your life and your career. And so it's every day you got to focus on what habits, what behaviors are going to move me toward reaching more people and having more of an impact and all that good stuff. And so, yeah, to me, that's where the nitty gritty is. It's in the daily mini stuff. And that has to do with habits and behaviors. And so for me, for instance, one thing that I've, in fact, I have a separate podcast called Well, a couple of them. One is Artist Empowerment Radio, but another one is called The Creative Entrepreneur, where for the first year of doing it, I interviewed a bunch of different people in creative fields. But I'm starting season 2 of The Creative Entrepreneur, and the first couple early episodes in season 2 is just me speaking about some. So I won't totally regurgitate what I said there. I'll probably link to them in the show notes. But in there, I talk about how, in addition to visualizing the end result, I also on a daily basis will visualize myself engaged in the activities that are going to get me to where I want to be. And so for me, it's writing. It's like me, I imagine myself sitting in a coffee shop or a Panera or wherever, the different places that I go, just totally engaged, where the ideas are flowing so fast, my fingers can't type enough to keep them up, because the more that I write and create, the more information I can get out there, the more of an impact I can be, the more I can, again, be of support to my family. And so it's things like that, recording online courses, designing the slides for the videos of online courses, designing book covers. So I actually have to visualize myself. And I think this is like a real game changer for me, because I used to only visualize the end result. But now I visualize the activities and how much fun and engaging that's going to be for me to do those things on a consistent basis. There's my little speech.
That was a nice speech, Bob. That was a really nice speech.
Hear ye. Thank you very much.
Now check this out. I use my goals a little bit differently. Once I set them, I try to, whenever I have any decision before me, I always try to ask myself, look at the goal, and is this helping me reach the goal? Or is it having no effect? Or is it like totally like taking me so far off the course of my goal, I'm headed for an episode of Gilligan's Island. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of like a triage of action based on whatever my goals I've set for myself, for personally and professionally. And that's really important, So that's kind of how I use them, to be honest with you.
You use them sort of as a barometer, or your North Star, if you will.
Yeah, course correction. Like basically what I do is I set myself up for a destination, all right? So my destination is, to go here. And then my goal is basically to say that is your destination. And then I use it as a roadmap to constantly make course corrections to get me to my destination. And that's how I use my goal setting. A little bit different, I think.
Yeah, and you have to be, so on one hand, you have to be specific and measurable about where you're headed, but also you have to be flexible in knowing that the route you get there is probably not going to be anything like you originally envisioned.
Well, you know the analogy about airplanes are off course like 80% of the time, when they're flying somewhere. It's just some crazy percentage because they're always drifting all the time. Boats are always drifting. These things are it's never a straight line. They're always having to adjust to make sure they stay on course because, there's the wind, there's the waves, there's, UFOs, sea monsters, whatever. They have to constantly...
sea monsters, the end of the world, falling off. Yes.
Yeah, you got to be prepared for these things. Stuff happens in life, you know what I mean? And you got to make sure you get back on track, In
another analogy related to what I was talking about, like, being more focused on the here and now in the micro steps, is there's people have talked about, like, when you drive from, I'm just going to pick up, Los Angeles to San Francisco, let's just say, and saying you're driving at night in particular, you got your headlights on, even though you know where your final destination is, you can only see however many 50 yards or whatever in front of you. And so you're focused on the road that's immediately in front of you and making sure you get through that segment and it's the next 50 yards or whatever. And so that's kind of an interesting way that's why I'm focusing more and more on what am I doing today? What am I doing this week? Not being burdened by everything I've got to do in the next 6 months or a year, but just staying focused on the little things that I can do today. And every day you wake up and go, here's another opportunity to chip away at this thing, and to me, that's the way to live sort of an effective, authentic life.
Right. I totally agree with you. Now, what some folks might not know about today's episode, the next 2 or 3 episodes. We did say we were recording in the distant past, but what we didn't mention was these are going to kind of be like our hit 'em and quit 'em episodes, or like little bite-sized episodes to give you something to chew on, something really important, and give you some action. So we're going to be probably getting close to the end of this episode here in a few minutes. So one question is, like, how many goals should you have? How many is too many? I usually like to do things in groups of threes myself. I usually like to have 3 short-term goals, 3 long-term goals, and then like my main target. That's kind of how I do things.
Yeah.
Any thoughts